Hold up.
Hey guys, it is Tristan with Nerdouts Newsstand, and first off, I want to wish everybody a happy new year, depending on when you were watching this video. It is New Year's Eve currently, and I am looking forward to a better 2022 on this channel. There will be a lot of stuff that I am doing that is very similar. I think making sure I put in the extra effort to platform something positive is going to be at the forefront, and then keeping any sort of drama specifically for my streams and stuff like that. Of course, still doing Ask the Experts. My next person should be Matt Kint. And then, of course, my bad ideas, my weekly top fives, and then next, starting a week in DC. Now, those are all the things I have planned for the new year. Is there anything specifically you guys are interested in me covering in the new year? I want to know down below. And of course, if you enjoy this type of content, hit subscribe, hit like, leave me a comment on your resolutions, what you're planning, any of that fun stuff. But I want to talk about something I've really noticed over the past year, and that is the sort of black pilling in a certain subset of community when it comes to comic books. Now, of course, this is related to culture as a whole. It has been something that has came up in the past 10 years that is relatively new. But basically, when I'm talking about black pilling, it is the defeatist attitude, the hate of everything, and the blame of others. And I've noticed this really rampant, especially when I mention, we're going to go there, especially when I mention women, because I generally gravitate towards that type of writer, especially when I really mention people of color or LGBTQ folk. This is something that I notice. The blame game begins and the hate game begins. And a lot of times it is generally anybody that they disagree with. It becomes a blame game of really I want to add entitlement in there. Yeah, I think I'm going to add entitlement in there. It becomes this, I hate everything, even if I have no footing in it. Like, we'll see this come out in the next few days. About a month ago, a comic book from T. Franklin came out that made Vixen in an Elseworld story bisexual. She has a woman that she performs cunningness on, and she has a giraffe tongue. And it was just a funny plot point, and it was T. Franklin, and it was Harley Quinn Eat, Bang, Kill, a complete Elseworld story. But there are going to be people coming out of the woodwork that are huge fans of Vixen, and everybody is mad. When this issue has been around for quite some time, if you have DC Infinite, I believe it was probably over a month ago that I actually read it. But even so, there's going to be people upset about this when it is ridiculous to be upset about in an Elseworld story. We just saw this with Kara in Dark Knights of Steel. We saw it with John Kent. Those, I would actually say, are a little bit more valid criticisms. But when it comes to something like this, we've seen different sexualities explored for a very long time in Elseworld stories. And I have no issue with it. I thought it was funny. I honestly just giggled and moved on to the next page. Like, it wasn't a big deal. But this happens, right? And I do think not only is it the black pilling and the defeatism, nihilism in comics, in the community rather, but it is also kind of the hustle culture that we see around YouTube and we see around the interwebs, so to speak, right? You've got to get that new video out. You need something to talk about. You need to bring something up that's new and relevant and is going to make somebody mad, so hurry up. Let's go to Bounding Into Comics. Let's go to Cosmic Book News. Let's go to one of those websites and take an article, and it's a complete circle jerk. Now, of course, these communities are not filled with black-pilled people, so to speak. And actually, I want to tell you a little story about a great subscriber I have. His name is James. He is MGTOW. He is black-pilled. He is more than willing to admit it. Every single time James leaves a comment here, he is respectful. He is respectful to everybody in the comment section. He is respectful to my ideals, and he is respectful to other people's. and he just listens. He listens and he maybe elaborates on what he thinks or adds something to the conversation. This is not the norm, though, and I really appreciate people like him having a different perspective and giving it to me, even if they are in that community. I appreciate that. I want to know that. I want to hear other opinions. But James is not the norm. James is the actual exception to the rule. Because if you go to a lot of my videos, specifically even yesterday, when I talked about women ruining comic books, you will notice that you get a lot of the answers are, yep, they sure did. Yep, they sure did. And that's why I say, you see a lot of these people saying, well, we're not misogynist. If you're saying that, you kind of are. Like, if you're completely blaming the whole gender, that's an issue. That's an issue of really, really looking and not knowing the medium as a whole, because there are plenty of women I gave in my list yesterday that without them, characters, storylines, they wouldn't exist. Comics as we know it today, women exist because of those women, right? Like, look at Flo Steinberg. Like, there's so many women out there that are great right now. I am absolutely in love with Joelle Jones' Wonder Girl. It is phenomenal. Her art is phenomenal. There are so many great women out there. Because you do not like one does not make the whole batch bad. And I really hate that otherizing. I really hate it. And I am not saying that I am not guilty of it, because there are times when I've done it. But I want to make sure when I talk about this black pilling or this hatred, this nihilism, that I don't otherize everyone. That's why I gave the example of James. This isn't an issue until you see the hustle added in and you see it extend and you see it get worse. And unfortunately, for people like me that just want to talk about comics or to improve where it necessarily isn't that great, or to platform people that maybe don't get a chance to, or that only get a chance to on websites like Bleeding Cool, or even bring on people that have dissenting opinions from mine. It really does a lot to my psyche. And that's my own fault. I know the advice of many people are just get thicker skin. And that's really hard to do. It really, really is. And when there is constant hate flowing, it's irritating. And I think at this point, I am just going to not, I'm going to allow the comments. Of course I am. But I'm not going to defend my beliefs, because that is not my right to put my beliefs onto you. But I do think we have a real issue when it comes to the comic book community, that a lot of people don't know specifically what they're talking about, whether it is behind the scenes of making comic books, who's involved, what type of people are involved, whether it is, the age-old thing, well, there's no conservatives in comics. Yes, there are. Even if you look at, characters like Wally West, that has been made to be a very conservative character as of recently in Jeremy Adams' run. There are conservatives, and unfortunately, some keep their mouth shut. And that's to their detriment. And I think that's silly. But this whole blame the SJWs, blame the wokeness, all of this is silly. What you need to start doing, instead of giving faux critique, if you want to, is dissect what the actual problem is within that book. So talk about Wonder Woman Evolution, right? I love Stephanie Phillips. I liked the book. It's not my favorite. What's the issue here? It's the inking. The inking's the issue, because Mike Hawthorne's art is fine. You need to dive into something like that. What can you add to this? What can you do? And I know a lot of people don't necessarily are able to, because it's 3 months in advance, really look and say, hey, that was a good criticism. Maybe in my next book, I will do this. And I think that's the only way possible forward, is to really, especially on my channel, is to avoid the hate. Because it does get to me. And that's silly, but it's the truth. And I think this black pilling in the community is only related to those that feel left out. And I'm sorry you feel left out, but comics were always for weird people. Nobody in their right mind wouldn't accept you, even if you are totally against Vixen being bi. Nobody cares. You just can't be rude about it, right? You just gotta be constructive about it. And there is a lot of hate flowing at this channel right now, and I am going to simply avoid it by not answering. And of course, those are allowed to exist. Those comments, I have no problem existing. Honestly, they just help the algorithm. But for my own personal psyche, it is not something I am going to engage in from here on out. And I do get those, oh my God, just admit there's an agenda. Just admit, go woke, go broke. Just admit, no. Listen, all you have to do is some basic research to know these things are fabricated from a place of nihilism. And that's it. But it doesn't matter how much real evidence you show, whether it is sales numbers or whether it is numbers of merch sold or this sold or what is at your local comic book store. It is the idea that you want to be told what you want to hear. And that's not really what I've ever been here for. So anyways, let me know what you guys thinking about this black pilling. Make sure you guys have an amazing New Year's. And I will see you in the next one.